What is the third leading danger that causes most retirees to outlive their money? In this episode, this is part 3 of a 3-part episode. I'm going to reveal the third leading danger, and they're in order for a reason, that causes most retirees to outlive their money. If you have not watched the first and second parts, I would recommend you do so. I'm Doug Andrew, and I've been a financial strategist and retirement planning specialist now for nearly 5 decades. And so I've been helping many people optimize assets, minimize taxes, prepare for a comfortable retirement so they will not outlive their money. The sad fact is most Americans today will outlive their money following traditional financial planning advice, putting money into traditional IRAs and 401ks. Even Roth IRAs and 401ks isn't going to do as well as they could have if they would understand and learn from these video episodes that I'm recording right now. And so I'm going to share with you in this episode the third leading danger. If you have not watched the other 2, I'd recommend you do that, and I'll sort of connect the dots at the end of this one. But this danger is actually because of the other 2. They sort of, those precipitate this danger, or it makes this danger happen because of the 2 previous ones. But it is very real, and we're experiencing it right now, big time, as of the recording of this episode. So folks, danger number 3, market volatility. Now, we've always had market volatility, but it's going to get worse before it gets any better, in my opinion. So it will continue for several years because of irresponsible government spending and the printing of money, all of these things that the government has been doing. Again, if you're not aware, the IRS, a couple of years ago, for example, brought in about $4 trillion in revenue. They refund about $800 billion, and so they netted about $3.2 trillion. Okay. Now, because of COVID-19, they spent twice that. Okay, if you spent twice as much as you made, how long could you do that? Well, right after that, they decided, hey, let's pass these spending bills and call them stimulus. Okay. And so they passed bills that added another $3 trillion of spending, and then they tried to pass another Build Back Better, and it didn't cut it. And they said, well, let's just change the name of it to Inflation Reduction Act, and let's sort of hide with smoke and mirrors this, and all of a sudden go, oh yeah, let's vote for that. And if you do the math, basically the government with these programs and then student loan forgiveness and what have you, they're spending between 3 to 4 times what they bring in revenue. Now, when they do that, there's only 2 ways to try to make ends meet, and that's to print money, which they've been doing way faster, 5 times what they've ever done previously. And if you print money to try to cover all of that spending, that causes inflation. And I can't believe some of these politicians are like, well, I don't know where this inflation's coming from. Just look at any country who tried to solve their spending by printing money, that it didn't cause exorbitant inflation at the time, and it went to their demise. That's where we are right now. And then they continue to spend. And so we have the spending, they raise taxes, they print money, which causes inflation. Those 2 then are domino effects over to the market volatility, because Wall Street is trying to figure out, what's going on? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? And that causes investors and so forth, even institutional investors, to get very concerned. And this is why they want to change the definition of what a recession is, because it's not good, to have election years if there's a recession going on. So they want to hide it in smoke and mirrors. Well, folks, here is something that a lot of financial advisors don't even understand, and it just blows me away. If you have a 25% loss, Okay, if you have $1 million and it loses 25% down to 750,000, a lot of advisors say, well, the market dropped 25% and then it came back 25%. And they think you're back to break even. I'm going, who taught you? No, if $1 million goes down to 750,000, that's a 25% loss. A 25% loss has to be followed by a 33% gain to get back your money. See, 33% of 750,000 is 250,000. So if you have 750,000 after a 25% loss, that has to grow by 33% just to get back to break even. Well, that means that if you lose 33%, if $1 million went down to 667,000, it's going to have to grow by 50%. It's going to have a 50% increase to come back to $1 million. Many people in 2008 lost 50%. And people say, oh, the market was back up 46% over this time period. You should be back to break even. No, if you lose 50%, if $1 million goes down to 500,000, that 500,000 has to have a 100% gain. It has to double in order to make up for a 50% loss. Okay? Now, you may be aware Warren Buffett had 2 rules of investing. Rule number 1 is don't lose money. Rule number 2 was don't forget rule number 1. Well, it's amazing how many financial advisors don't know how to actually do that. They think that's just cute. Well, here is the S&P 500 during the worst 12-year period since the Great Depression. It includes the Great Recession. If investors had their money in tax-deferred IRAs or 401ks in the market, okay, and they had $1 million nest egg, they saw that $1 million nest egg after the 9/11 terrorist attacks go down from 2001 to 2003 down to 650,000, even 600,000. It took 4 years to come back, okay, up here to a break even in 2007. Many retirees had to put off retirement 7 years. They felt like they'd lost their future. Then in 2008, what happened? As Warren Buffett put it, he said when the tide went out in 2008, it revealed who was swimming naked, meaning who wasn't protected from that market volatility, the mortgage meltdown, all of that. People lost 30, 40, 50% for the second time in a decade. And it took 4 years until 2012 to finally have $1,046,800 to show for their original million. We call it the lost decade because inflation eroded away. They weren't ahead of the game. Now, during that 12-year period, just to give you a sneak preview, my favorite vehicle, which I call the LASERFund, and I'm going to gift you this 300-page book at the end of this episode, so stay with me. The LASERFund, people who owned those had 2.5 to 3 times their money. If they had $1 million here, they had 2.5 to 3 million here. They did not lose during those downturns in the market. Because I have the solution for market volatility. You don't want to have to worry about market volatility when you're retired, okay? So this is what it looked like, and that is a pathetic 1/3 of 1% compounded rate of return during that Great Recession. Well, we are going to continue to have those types of recessions. So by using indexing, a strategy that is part of the LASERFund, a LASERFund is a properly structured, maximum funded, indexed universal life insurance contract. But see, it has to be structured correctly and funded properly. And so many of our clients, they ended up with 130% more instead of 4% more, even if they only just, like fell asleep and woke up 12 years later like Rip Van Winkle, and they had 130% growth on their money instead of 4%. But the advisors that I point my students to, they rebalance, and so it was much greater than that. If you started in 1975, which is the year after I began in 1974, with $500,000 in the market, in the S&P, your money would have done really well in the 90s, and then look what happened in 2001 to 2003, and again in 2008. But people go, well, you have to just go through it. The market is like a person with a yo-yo, And so you end up with 5.6 million, and that sounds pretty good. Well, for 35 years, you had a lot of heartburn, but I say, well, golly, you could have had 8 million and no heartburn. Because if you go through all of those gyrations in the market to end up with 5.6 million, and most people, they wait and the market goes down and they sell low, and then they wait, and they buy high, so they're not averaging that average of about 9%. Dalbar says the average person with money in the market is only averaging 3.5%. That's unfortunate. If you had 5.6 million in a tax-deferred IRA or 401k, because you started out with $500,000, that's not all your money. You only have 3.8 million. That's the first danger, taxes. Wouldn't you rather have 8 million and you never lose money when the market goes down? During the down years, which usually 30% of the years are down years, 70% are up years. You make money during the 70% of up years. You do not lose one dime. You may not make anything in the down years, but you don't lose. In that 2000 to 2010 period, there were 5 down years. Many of our clients, they didn't make anything, but they didn't lose. The other 5 years, they made money, and they ended up doubling their money if that's all they did. I'd rather have 8 million tax-free. So what a lot of people don't understand is how to be able to participate when the market goes up and not lose when the market goes down, because your money is not invested at risk in the market. It's safe in an insurance company. And it's earning a general account portfolio yield of 4 or 5%, but anytime you want, you can relinquish that 4% interest and allow the insurance company to fund an options budget to buy upside options so that they can pay 8 and 12%, even 25%, up to maybe a cap, if the market goes up. But if the market goes down, those options expire worthless, but you still have your million. You only gave up the interest on your million that year to go for it if you felt bullish about America. You need to watch other episodes on this channel to understand what I just said. But see, what we do with the advisors I point my students to, they might diversify 40% in a 1 year, what is called a high cap, 40% in a 2 year, 20% in a 5 year. Why? Because even though these are capped and these are no cap, the average has been 11.3% over any 20-year period for ever since the Great Depression. If you seize opportunities like when the market goes down, which happened in March of 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic, when the market went down 30%, or as of the recording of this episode in 2022, a few months ago, the IUL professionals that I point my students to said, hey, link in this downturn 50% to a 2 year, 50% to a 5 year. Why? Because the average is 14% tax-free. So folks, this is an example of an actual statement of an IUL insurance contract structured correctly, what we call a laser fund. And they diversify in one single company, one single product. And they earn 14, 10, 15, 8, 13%. Yep, this is the real deal. Here's another one, 14, 16, 10, 15, 13. We even have opportunities like March of 2020 when my sons, who are IUL specialists, told their clients, hey, link to a 1 year point-to-point with no cap. Now, that's a strategy you can use. And they were able to experience the upside of 66.33% from March of 2020 to March of 2021. If you choose that one, there's no cap, but they subtract 5 percentage points. So 66.33 minus 5 percentage points, they netted only 61.33%, Chucky darn. This client was able to earn $18,000 on his account. He had $18,000, and it earned $11,500, and it was worth $29,000. We have another client who had $852,000 in March of 2020. He didn't add a dime to this account. 1 year later, in his laser fund, he ended up with $1,387,000. He made $535,000 tax-free. But if the next year the market would have dropped 40%, he would not have lost one dime of that $500,000 that he made the year before, because every year those gains are locked in and it's reset. Okay? So folks, if you want to learn how to do this, you will actually see how many people using a max-funded tax advantage insurance contract structured correctly, which would be deemed a laser fund, even though, they're projected usually like 12 years ago at 9.5%, and we have naysayers that say, oh, I've never seen one of these ever perform as good as they were illustrated. Look at this one, 12.88 average. They had 110,000 in it 12 years after they took it out. When they started it, it was projected they would have 63,000. It was projected they would have 63, and they ended up with a lot more. This is the real deal, folks. So many times I feel like as a financial strategist, I've got all this ammunition here to help you fight these battles of taxes, inflation, and market volatility. Sometimes people don't even understand how much $1 trillion is. That's $1 bills lined up end to end from here to the moon and back 200 times, and the government is spending it like crazy. Social Security has been technically bankrupt since 2009. And they keep pushing it off, and they keep raising taxes. It's a broken system. It's not going to last another 30 years without taxes going up dramatically, and this is what causes people to outlive their money. So in 2009, the last time we had market volatility, I wrote this ebook called Create Your Own Economic Stimulus. And I actually showed this sinking ship, and I labeled it the USS economy. And this is what was going on because congressional people were passing spending money, rearranging deck chairs on a sinking Titanic, thinking that things were going to come back. If your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep will become your downfall, personally and as a country. And so if this economy, okay, if we go into a recession, anytime you go into a market downturn, I want you to be able to stay afloat. That's why this channel exists with these three-dimensional wealth strategies, so you can stay afloat. So if you want to learn more and why, a 401k is not the cat's meow we thought it was, you're not going to be in a lower tax bracket. Uncle Sam is going to have to take a bigger and bigger piece of the American taxpayers' pie. And these congressional legislators are actually slowing down an economy that's trying to score some touchdowns, and they keep causing it to get tackled and slow down and enter into recessions. So the third of the three biggest dangers is market volatility, and unfortunately it's going to stay. I want you to eliminate the downside risk and still participate in upside potential by using this strategy called indexing and using locking in your gains and resetting. How can you learn to do that? Eliminate the dangers, taxes, inflation, and market volatility by converting to tax-free, linking returns to the things that inflate, and using indexing. So folks, the greatest strengths of the LASERFund, and it's what we put on the front of the book, are liquidity, the ability to access your money when you need it, safety, and earning predictable rates of return, and I prefer tax-free. These are the 4 pillars on this book, and you can score any investment on a scale of 1 to 10. The LASERFund scores between 33 to 35 out of a possible 40. Nothing else even comes close. Most IRAs and 401ks only score 18 to 22 out of 40. So if you want to learn more about the LASERFund, here's how you can claim your free copy. Simply go to LASERFund.com or click on the link below. You contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that cost, and I will pay for the book, and I'll fire out a hard copy to you, 300 pages, charts, graphs, explanations, 62 actual client stories. Over here on the right brain side, this is actually 2 books in one, okay? And then when you're in there, check out if you like to listen and learn, watch and learn, but also you can see how we teach educational webinars that are free. And you can even schedule an appointment with an IUL specialist to see how these strategies may apply in your particular set of circumstances. But don't delay. If you miss out on eliminating the dangers of taxes, inflation, and market volatility, you will have an absolutely unacceptable regret at the end of the day, and you're going to outlive your money. I don't want you to do that.